People can listen to the students' podcast to learn more about Miranda's story on the Bonnie Eagle Middle School Facebook page. In Buxton, Julia Simone, CBS 13 News.
This is my nightmare.
Homeowners' dreams shattered.
He took everything.
As complaints about contractors pile up across Maine, from shoddy work to outright theft.
$2,660. It's gone forever.
There's 20 other things that were all wrong that we had to redo at our cost.
Leaving consumers to pick up the pieces.
Everybody's just like throwing their hands up like, what else? What else can we do?
The professional cutting your hair or painting your nails has to be licensed in Maine, but not the contractor working on your home.
The time for more studies is over. The time for standards has come.
The debate over regulating the industry is once again in the spotlight at the State House.
Some of the issues that need to be addressed in this bill wouldn't be solved by a license.
The CBS 13 I-Team presents a town hall event, Contractor Conflict, Maine's Oversight Gap.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of CBS 13 News at 6. I'm Marissa Bodner.
And I'm Dan Lamparello. Our goal tonight is to have a productive, solutions-based conversation about the need for consumer protections while balancing the potential impacts of new requirements on contractors and housing development.
Joining us is Representative Tiffany Roberts, a Democrat from South Berwick and the sponsor of the most recent bill to regulate contractors. Warren O'Shea, a contractor representing the Home Builders and Remodeling Association of Maine, and Jeff Harris, current president of the Maine Association of Realtors. Each has a unique perspective on this issue, which continues to generate strong interest and debate all across the state.
We also want to involve you at home. This entire conversation is streaming live right now on our website and our Facebook page. If you have questions for our panelists, let us know by scanning the QR code there at the bottom of your screen to weigh in.
But before we dive into that conversation, let's start with how we got here. For decades, Maine homeowners have shared stories of half-finished projects and little recourse when contractors walk away.
Tonight, we take a look back at the long history behind the debate over contractor regulations and why finding a solution has been so difficult.
She says he disappeared.
The formats have changed over the years, but one topic has been a constant.
So Mary says she paid the contractor everything up front, but he left the job half finished.
Dating back to the 90s, our archives full of stories about contractors.
There's no roof, the foundation is cracking, the doors are off kilter.
And through the 2000s.
We're frustrated.
We feel scammed.
We feel very scammed.
To our latest story just this week.
He's victimizing people continuously and not being held accountable for it. And it's like, how is that possible?
In the past 5 years alone, thousands of complaints against home contractors have poured into the Maine Attorney General's office, totaling tens of millions of dollars in losses. Whether it's a blatant case of theft, bad business practice, or just a difference of opinion.
Our office receives more consumer complaints against home construction contractors than against any other trade or business.
Right now, the AG's Consumer Protection Division will mediate complaints, but that's only if the contractor agrees to participate. They say the majority don't. The AG can also bring a civil or criminal case if there are enough victims.
Litigation is slow, sometimes years long, and contractors usually have insufficient assets to satisfy a judgment.
More often, consumers are left to fight these situations on their own.
I contacted the police, and the police were like, we can't help you, this is civil. And I was like, but no, he's stolen. And they were like, no, it's civil. I just got scammed out of $125,000, and now I have to pay $10,000 to $20,000 just to get him in trouble for it.
Maine is one of only a few states with no oversight of contractors who build or renovate homes. Right now, the only protection for consumers under the law is the Maine Home Construction Contract Act, which requires a written contract for any project over $3,000 and limits the initial deposit to no more than 1/3 of the total price. The AG's office says that's often ignored.
The contract is only as good as the person who's on the other end of it.
For nearly 4 decades, lawmakers in Augusta have been debating this issue. The I-Team found one of the first modern attempts to regulate contractors was in 1986, a bill to require licensing. It died in committee. Over the next few decades, there were 12 more attempts at regulation that all failed. And then in 2006, lawmakers passed a bill to develop a model for registration. 2 years later, another licensing bill was introduced, but was later watered down to a study on the issue. From there, 7 more bills were introduced over the years, and only one passed. Last year, an act to protect consumers by licensing home building contractors was approved in both chambers, but ultimately died after it wasn't funded.
The time to study the problem has passed. The data is in. The harm is real. The system is broken. What we need now is action.
Representative Tiffany Roberts is behind the latest bill this session. It would require a license for any contractor working on a project valued at more than $15,000, or those involving 2 or more licensed professionals. It would also create a board to oversee the program and establish education requirements. If passed, the bill wouldn't go into effect tomorrow. It would establish the program over 2 years.
Consumer protection is not just a Democratic or Republican priority. It is a Maine priority.
But Republicans have raised some concerns, calling the issue of licensing complex.
I can't support it as written, and I do hope that we can put together a working group that gives us very clear definitions of what we are and are not licensing.
While some contractors testified in favor of licensing,
it's not a significant burden to the contractor.
One of the state's largest trade organizations claims it will be overburdensome and says the current law should be better enforced.
A lot of the things that you've heard about today are crimes. They're felonies. Taking away, taking $100,000 and skipping and run, that's beyond a home construction contract. That's a crime that needs to be prosecuted in a court.
Victims we've spoken to over the years aren't sure what the right solution is, but almost all tell the I-Team something needs to change.
Tomorrow, you can be a contractor. Do you know how to build a house? No, of course not.
Like an electrician has to be licensed, the plumber has to be licensed. Why wouldn't a contractor have to be licensed? It makes no sense.
I think, it's just kind of astounding that they haven't done more.
Now, earlier this month, the legislation to license contractors did pass out of committee along party lines with a divided report. Democrats support it as is, while Republicans are pushing for a working group to clarify the scope and structure of the proposed program. The full legislation will now be decided by the full legislature if it moves forward.
Now, turning to our panel, let's open up the conversation. Why do you think this proposal is or isn't the right solution? Warren, you're a contractor yourself. You're here representing other contractors, so let's start with you.
Well, I think this last piece is really the damning evidence that this has been going on, and we've been trying to have something in place to protect consumers. Representative Roberts said there's no more time for discussing this. We have to act. Is this going to be the best thing and fix everything all at once? Well, of course not. It's got it has a bell curve of success, I would imagine. Things are going to change, but we really need to start somewhere.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, we do have to have minimum standards, minimum conduct, for our consumers, our buyers, sellers. The price of homes are expensive, and they're not going back. When you take impact, regulations, all those fees, they add on to the cost of building houses. So, yeah, I just think it's the wrong time right now because of the shortage of housing. We need housing, and the more restrictions that we put on or regulations, it's going to impact some of these builders. It could force some of these builders out that are on the end of their working career, perhaps. Maybe stop some of the young people from coming into the business. Some of this licensing. You have to think about. It's definitely a broad perspective. How it's going to work.
The issue of housing is something we're going to be continuing to talk about throughout tonight's discussion. Representative Roberts, I want to turn to you. You obviously introduced this legislation, so we know you support it. Why do you think it is the best way to address this issue?
I don't necessarily think there is a best way, but there needs to be a next step. There needs to be, doing the next right thing. What we have here is basically the same thing that we passed last session that didn't get funded. So wasn't anything reinvented. It's something that's been in the works for, 3 years now. But because we've gone so far down the road of not regulating, there's not going to be one perfect, set of laws or standards. We've got to figure it out as we go and work our way back to get on the road of consumer protection and giving integrity to the industry. And is it perfect? We don't know. Of course, nothing's perfect. Policy's incremental. That's why we're in Augusta. We have to kind of adjust things as we go. And I would think we will have to with this if it passes as well.
Well, we do want to point out, notably absent from tonight's conversation are some of the organizations and state agencies that oppose or have raised some concerns about this contractor licensing bill.
We invited them to join this town hall multiple times, in fact, but all declined, including both the Associated Builders and Contractors of Maine and the Associated General Contractors of Maine. We still want to include their perspective, which was shared in public testimony.
Licensing home contractors may seem like a logical fix to protect consumers, but critics argue it's the wrong tool for the job.
Some of the issues that need to be addressed in this bill wouldn't be solved by a license.
Garrett Mason testified on behalf of the Associated Builders and Contractors of Maine in opposition to this latest bill. Not out of support for fraud, but because he says the current laws already offer protection. He argues the Attorney General's office needs more tools to better enforce them and ramp up consumer education.
Contract law is sufficient to be able to handle a home construction project or a renovation project, and we believe that those things should be enforced, and ABC would absolutely be in favor of staffing up that department in a way that you could go after people like this effectively.
Some of Maine's largest construction trade groups point out contractors already face oversight through permitting and inspections for each project.
So I do take a little bit of a disagreement with those who would say that there's just simply no oversight. Code enforcement absolutely oversees these things, and if they're not, it's because a permit hasn't been issued, and that's a separate issue that needs to be addressed.
The Maine Department of Professional and Financial Regulation, which would house a contractor license program, also opposes the bill. The department says it lacks a clear enforcement plan and defined standards. They're pushing instead for another comprehensive study, saying the last one is now more than 20 years old.
There's just a whole range of issues out there that very much impact the contractor regulation and how it would impact the housing growth that the state is looking for.
So one of the concerns mentioned repeatedly is the ongoing housing supply and affordability crisis. It's already been mentioned here tonight. According to a state report released last fall, Maine needs between 76,400 and 84,300 new housing units by 2030 to make up for historic underproduction and meet future needs.
So Jeff, let's turn to you. The Maine Association of Realtors has been tracking the state's housing crisis obviously very closely. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. How do you think any new regulations would hamper the efforts to build new housing stock in our state?
Well, it's going to add to the cost of the housing. As it is, the median sale price in Maine is $376,000 up to $400,000. You know, it's been going between them numbers for the last year basically, and the more we add, it's already unaffordable when you look at it. The interest rates. Sellers are staying put because they cannot get out of what they have to go buy another home. It will cost them more. They're going to stay where they are. All these regulations just add to the cost of these buildings. And you know, we have to think about passing these buildings on to real estate to our kids, our grandchildren. You know, how are they going to get into this? You know, they need help. They need help.
And Warren, we want to talk to you about this as well. As a contractor, you know, one of the arguments we hear from opponents is that contractors like yourself might retire early or, you know, get out of the trade. It might discourage folks from getting into the trade. What do you think about that?
I think it's more about the unavailability of skilled labor right now. I mean, we have an aging workforce and nobody to fill the boots, per se. with the housing crisis, I feel that this is the most opportune time to really enact this type of legislation, because the need is great. The individuals able to fulfill the need are not there, and this is where the most amount of problems could arise. We've got if you basically show up to a job site, you're going to get paid. You know, so that says nothing about your professionalism, education, quality of work, and that's just the building. I mean, you're running a business. Or, you know, what do you do? What's your profession? Be professional. Conduct yourself professionally. Make sure you surround yourself with professionals. The Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Maine has strength in that, and a strength in our diversity and multiple facets. So, I mean, that's another way to kind of make sure that you are classifying yourself with people who have the same interests.
Representative Roberts, I know this was brought up during the public hearing, but some concerns about the education requirements that I know there will be if this passes, a board to establish what those may be. But where do you envision those to be? People who are maybe in the industry for, say, 40 years who may not have a college degree, would this require them to get that?
So as a couple tweaks were made from last session to this, and one of them was we did take out the prerequisite of education requirement, where it basically just says a combination of education or on-the-job experience that enables you to pass this test, which there are many companies that do it all across the nation that have these kind of standardized tests that are around the building code, basic business acumen. So we've taken out that pre-education requirement and then kept it continuing in that the board would kind of prescribe, because there's so many good organizations out there that are providing continuing ed for the building trades that I think we can't be prescriptive. That's not our role there.
And as we mentioned, a lot of those details would be left up to the appointed board under this bill.
And I think we go back to, we've gone so far down. So we really need to kind of rely on the board, the experts in the industry. I certainly don't know what those standards should be, but there definitely are folks who can.
Let's check in with the I-Team's Stephanie Grinley. She's at the live desk right now, tracking our viewers' comments and questions online about this conversation. Stephanie, what are they saying tonight?
Yeah, Dan, Marissa, we're reading through dozens of comments right now coming in on our Facebook. We asked you at home to weigh in. Should Maine require general contractors to be licensed? It's really split between some saying yes, others saying no. Joanne elaborates, writing, quote, I don't think that licensing is going to solve the underlying issue, but something needs to be done to protect consumers. Meanwhile, Martha is saying she's all for licensing, saying other services to consumers are, so why not? No formal question yet, but I am hearing some skepticism from some like Amanda, who writes, not sure requiring them to pay a fee to have a piece of paper is the answer. So that's what we're hearing. We're going to continue to monitor these questions. Dan, Marissa, back to you.
Folks out there obviously very split on this issue, whether licensing or some type of regulation will address the problem. And we've shared some of the situations consumers have relayed to us about contractors. So turning back to our panel, what do you all hear from consumers or clients that you might interact with in your various capacities? Representative Roberts, we'll start with you.
I would say I'm hearing any and all things from any and all people from both sides. I mean, that's kind of the nature of where I've put myself inadvertently in this policy area. From, we need to do something to, we don't want to put folks out of business. We need to protect consumers. We're being, reactive instead of proactive. There's nothing binding the contractors out there to come to the table. Then there's the burden, and then there's is it going to increase the cost of housing? And, look at the cost it's causing some of these homeowners right now, and trying to weigh all these out, it is really tough, but we need to do something.
Warren, I know you talked at the public hearing about some of the clients that you've worked for who have, you've had to fix some of their work over the years. Can you talk about that, what they've told you?
I think over the years, starting out with Channel 13 investigative reporter John Chrysos, I started reaching out to people who were getting ripped off by contractors. I would say we do a job every other year where we're coming in behind another contractor. We're just finishing up a job in Raymond that our bills to the homeowner after everything was done was $178,000. And that's what the homeowner went after the contractor for. I appeared in court, represented the homeowner. The contractor was found liable for those damages and as well as 16 counts of violations within the state code. Homeowner just can't get any money out of him. His assets are dispersed, not in his name. He rents his property, and so not only is the homeowner out the 170, but all the money that they paid them initially. So, quick calculation: we're in the high $300,000 that this person has spent.
And Jeff, how about you and your experience in real estate?
So what we're hearing is, how can buyers buy at the prices we're at? How can they afford? It's unaffordable. Really unaffordable. You know, again, when you're looking at $400,000 more or less, it's not affordable to the young generation. When we also look at the young generation, the first time buying, going from age 27 to 38, that's just not cool. That is not right. We should be able to get our young people into these homes in their 20s. It builds generational wealth. We need to pass that on.
Well, as we've mentioned throughout the broadcast tonight, concerns about contractors are consistently the #1 complaint filed each year with the Maine Attorney General's office, whether that's defective workmanship or just a difference of opinion in general. Since 2020, the agency says they've received more than 3,200 complaints. Fewer than 100 have been resolved through mediation. That's because the AG's office, as we've mentioned, says contractors often refuse to participate.
Opponents to new regulations say there's already enough consumer protections. That includes requiring a contract as well as the state's building codes. So Warren, as a contractor, do you think adding resources to the AG's office or expanding the use of code enforcement, do you think those things would help solve this problem?
Well, code enforcement is is basically set by national standards. So you have to have the education to produce product that is in compliance with the code. There are some municipalities that do not have acting code officers, whether it's structural, electrical, plumbing, or some of those. That does not mean that you don't have to build things to code. I mean, the code is the code. That's how we operate. You know, this is the baseline of how we conduct our business, and it is the basis minimum required. Code is a documentation of minimums. You've got to hit the minimums, you know, and whether you're being inspected or not.
What about smaller communities? We know some municipalities can choose whether or not to enforce the codes in Maine.
They don't get to choose if they are just not staffed. Some of the smaller towns, my town does not have a current operating code enforcement officer. There was one, but now there's nothing. So a lot of smaller municipalities will share CEOs. One CEO might be working for several towns, but that is they're overburdened. So really the impetus is for the contractor to know the code and produce code compliant structures. I would mention, you know, as Jeff was saying, we're passing these homes and assets on to our younger generation. Those houses need to stand up for that younger generation. My house is 230 years old. It's still standing there because of the procedures and quality that they put into it. I would want that to happen with houses being built today.
Jeff, with the Association of Realtors, are you seeing with new builds any realtors that are having issues with, you know, coming in and seeing work that needs to be redone after, say, an inspection?
No, we have not seen that or heard that. However, as you know, when we sell homes, we have building inspectors. they have drones. They fly over the roofs. They look at roofs. They look at chimneys. They look at heating systems. They look at siding. They look at water issues. They look at everything. So my suggestion is to always have a really good home inspection, thoroughly done. It would protect the consumer and the buyer for years to come.
And right now, Maine is one of just 6 states with no regulations for general home contractors. That's according to a recent survey. That list also includes neighboring New Hampshire. Every other state either has some form of state-issued license or registry, or the industry is regulated on the local level by individual cities and towns.
You can see both red and blue states have adopted consumer protections. Our team has found this issue impacts Mainers of all backgrounds in all parts of the state. Representative Roberts, you've been pushing for these regulations for quite a few years now. Why do you think this is still a partisan issue, rather, that it falls along party lines? And do you think this is the year it could get past that?
If I had the answer to the why, then I think we could. I'm not sure. It seems like it only is kind of in the building, because when I talk to folks outside, you know, contractors, consumers, it isn't. So I don't know if it's a regulation issue or a cost issue. It's, like I said, if I knew the why, I would have tried to address it. And you know, I have had a lot of conversations, and I think that some of my colleagues do understand that there is an issue. There's just disagreement on what the solution is, or if this is the solution. And those are the conversations we need to keep having.
Warren, how about you? Obviously, some contractors very much in support of this would like to see kind of the good contractors recognized and maybe weed out some of the bad actors. But obviously, some contractor groups opposed to regulation. What do you make of that?
I embrace the diversity of opinion. You know, this is a very complex and wide-reaching issue, and just because, you know, we're only the 6th in the country to not have it, has it solved the problems in the other states? Well, of course not. Just like driving without a license, people are still driving. What I think will end up happening, though, is that contractors who are against it and begrudgingly, a lot of them will say that the price is, you know, too much to absorb. From what I understand, it's $500. You know, if you can roll tariff increases for lumber into your cost of doing business, your workman's comp, unemployment, you can roll $500 into your overhead. The homeowner is where that gets passed on to, and I think that because they have some confidence, and now they have a system that licensed contractors, that they are willing to, if you were to say $500 for my license, they would pay it because they know that you take some pride in your work and doing the right things. I also know that over a period of time, when contractors stop getting jobs, because when the homeowner asks them if they're licensed and they say no, that homeowner is just going to go somewhere else.
Jeff, we'd love to, you know, we have a minute or so left in our program here. We'd love to just get some final thoughts from you.
Yep. So I want to say that in the housing industry, I want to see housing incentivized. I want to see it passed on to our children and grandchildren. I am proud to represent Maine through the Maine Association of Realtors as the president this year, and hopefully we can get a lot more housing built. But I also I'm proud to represent the consumers as well, buyers and sellers, as the president of the Maine Association of Realtors.
Panelists, thank you so much for being here. That is all the time we have, but we thank you for being here for this important discussion. And as the debate continues, we want to remind you at home what your rights are under the current law when you're hiring a contractor.
You can scan the QR code on your screen for our full consumer guide. And obviously, this is going to be an issue our team is going to be continuing to follow. We appreciate you joining us tonight.
Have a great night.